Welcome to Making Memories. I'm Linda Wright at Randolph-Macon College, and today is June 14th, 2024. Today I'm here with Professor Serge Schreiner, the Jackson Professor of Chemistry at Randolph-Macon College. Welcome, Professor Schreiner.
Thank you.
So, you have had an unusual path to Randolph-Macon, and I always like to start by asking people about their background and where they grew up and how they came to Randolph-Macon. But why don't you give us a little more background than most and tell us about how you grew up and came to the United States?
Okay, so I grew up in Europe, in Luxembourg, a very small country, size of Rhode Island, population of Wyoming. And Luxembourg had a connection to Miami University in Ohio. And in fact, Miami University had a campus in Luxembourg. And every year, that particular campus in Luxembourg would send 3 or 4 students from Luxembourg to the US campus for 1 year. And when it was time to go to college, I decided to apply to that particular university. And I was accepted to go for a year, and I decided to go. It was a pretty scary experience. My English was not so good, and I decided to do just 1 year, and I didn't really enjoy it the first semester. Almost returned back home, and then decided to stick it out, and I ended up getting my undergraduate degree there. And then when it was time to get a job, I applied for a high school job as a teacher in Luxembourg, and they turned me down, and because I finished in 3 years, and they felt like I needed 4 years of college or university. So I applied to graduate school, not planning to go to graduate school, getting a master's degree, and then my advisor talked me into getting a PhD. and then I sort of fell into the teaching profession by accident in a way. And certainly staying in the United States was not really planned either. When it came time to get a job, I wanted to teach at a 4-year school. Luxembourg didn't have any universities at the time, and so going back home was not really an option. I would have had to teach abroad. And so I thought, well, if I have to teach abroad, I may as well do it in the United States.
Wow. So you you weren't able to get a job teaching high school, but you ended up teaching college. So I
did,
guess
yes.
that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And you were a chemistry major, I presume,
Yes.
at Miami University.
Yes.
Well, that's very interesting. And then you went to graduate school, Clarkson University in New York.
Yes.
Right. And so how did you end up in Randolph-Macon?
Yes, when I decided to look for jobs, I did what everybody else did. I applied to about 20 or 30 different places, and I was fortunate enough to get a few job offers. And in the end, it came down to 2. I had an offer from Colgate University and Randolph-Macon. And when I was interviewing at Randolph-Macon, the person who ended up hiring me, Stuart Monroe, who was department chair at the time, he walked me over to the president's office and the provost's office. At that time was Jerry Garris and Liddell Payne. And on the way over there, we ran into Ray Berry, who was walking across campus. And Stuart introduced me to Ray and told him that I was from Luxembourg. And Ray, without missing a beat, started to say a few words in Luxembourgish to me. And I was quite surprised. I didn't exactly expect that in Ashland. It turns out Ray spent a year in Luxembourg in the 70s, early 70s, driving a taxi cab. And so we always sort of had that connection. And I thought, well, this is interesting. Maybe this is a sign. Maybe Randolph-Macon is a place for me. And then when I was talking with Jerry Garris, he was asking me about other job offers that I had, and I told him about the Colgate job. And he said something to me that I never forgot. He said, you know, I think you can make more of a difference here to the Randolph-Macon students than the Colgate students. And that sort of, maybe he was playing towards my ego or something. And I thought, you know, this might be a good place. And so that's really why ended up coming to Randolph-Macon. I thought I could work here. The administration at the time was really great, meeting Liddell, meeting Jerry. And also I met some students. There was some sort of a job fair going on in Estes upstairs, and I ended up talking to a bunch of students. And I really enjoyed talking with the students, and I really enjoyed the student body, much more so than the group that I met at Colgate. And I thought, well, you know, I think I'll take this job and not the other one. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that really is serendipity that you ran into Ray, and I had no idea that he had spent a year in Luxembourg. But before we leave Luxembourg, I do want to ask you about your table tennis career.
Yes. So yes, I enjoyed playing all kinds of sports when I grew up. Table tennis was one of them, but again, I sort of got into that a little bit by accident. I was much more of a soccer player. I enjoyed playing soccer, and I had a high school teacher, an elementary school teacher who took us to the gym one day. He gave us a ping pong paddle or table tennis paddle, and he said, and he was serving to us, and I returned the ball into the ceiling. And he said something that I also never forgot. He said, "You will never learn how to play this game." And and I thought, So I decided to take it up and play it, and eventually came to the point where I had to decide either soccer or table tennis. And I started to play really when I was 11 years old, and during my time in junior high school and high school, I played table tennis on a regular basis. We would practice 4 times a week, and then would have team competitions on Saturdays and tournaments on Sunday. And yeah, my hometown team was pretty good. We won 5 national championships, and I won a few titles in singles and doubles, I think 20 or 24 altogether. And I ended up going to World Championships and European Championships. It was a great part of my life. I really lived for table tennis and not so much for academics at the time. So, yeah. Well,
that's wonderful. Congratulations. So I can see that you're embarrassed telling this story, but I think that's wonderful. And it's part of who you are and born to those early years, I'm sure. Yeah. And that competition must, the experience and the team and the competition, I'm sure, forms your personality as you grow up, too.
Yeah. I think it really taught me 2 things. One was being able to perform under pressure when sort of the lens was on you. It took a long time to get used to that, but I think that helped. And also the idea of being part of a team sport. I mean, you were playing by yourself, but ultimately you played for your team, and if you lost a match, your team might lose, or if you won a match, your team might win. And so certainly that had an influence on how I was thinking about working with people, for example. So.
And how that comment about how you might make a difference here too may be a factor. Well, okay, so we'll come back to Randolph-Macon. Thank you for that. So you came, I believe, let me just get my dates right here. Stuart Monroe was the department chair at the time, and you came in 1986. So talk about the department at that time in the mid to late 80s. What was the chemistry department like at that time?
Yeah, so in '86, Stuart Monroe was department chair. Brian Morse was the other person in the department. And then we had a third chemist, Phyllis Soini was her name. And she was here only 3 years, and then she left. And I don't remember the circumstances under which she left. Her husband was working at VCU at the time. And so it was really just the 3 of us, Brian and Stuart, as the only other 2 members of the department. And so we were a very small department, and the equipment that we had was not particularly good. And so one of the things that I felt like we needed to do was get better equipment for the program. So the first several years were pretty challenging, and also the other two members in the department didn't really do research during the summer. The only department that was pretty heavily involved in doing research during the summer was the biology department. Wallace Martin, Barry Knisley, and Art Conway. Those three were sort of keeping the bio program afloat during the summers, and so the first several years I would go somewhere else to do research. I went 1 year back to my graduate school, another year I went to Northwestern as an NSF fellow, and then I spent 4 or 5 years through an NSF program at JMU doing research, and sometimes I took Randolph-Macon students to do that, and it was in large part because we didn't really do research yet, because we didn't really have the equipment, so things were very different.
And to improve the equipment is a lot. I imagine a lot of that is grant funded.
Yes, a lot of it was grant funded. We were very fortunate. National Science Foundation was very good to us. We were able to get half a dozen or so different grants for various pieces of equipment, GCMS, an infrared spectrometer, an NMR, atomic absorption, and so forth. And so that really changed things for us from an equipment point of view, and I think it made it much more feasible to do research now at Randolph-Macon than in the very early years.
What about, do you want to talk about some of the courses you taught during that time, or as the department has grown? Is your area inorganic? Inorganic. So. Yes.
Yeah, so I was hired as an inorganic chemist. In fact, I was hired to replace Konrad Stanitsky. Konrad Stanitsky, I think he was here maybe half a dozen years or something like that. He was the inorganic chemist. He is a pretty famous textbook author of a general chemistry textbook, and he decided to go on to become a dean or provost. And so when he left, they did a search for an inorganic chemist, and that's the job that I applied for. And so in the early days, the courses I taught was inorganic chemistry and general chemistry. Those were really the two main courses, versions that I taught. And then a couple of years later, I had a few students, chemistry and bio students, they talked to me about developing a forensic chemistry course, chemistry and crime course. And so I decided to do that, and that was really a fun course to teach. I taught it for really many years. It was a non-majors course really, but a lot of chemistry people and biology students at the time took it. And I really enjoyed teaching that course. I think I taught it every other year or something along those lines. And I enjoyed developing that course. We would do field trips to the FBI Academy in Quantico, and then I had the idea of developing a wine course. When I was an undergraduate, I took a course called Geography of Wine during my senior year. And I really enjoyed that course. It was a three credit lecture course, and we met once a week. We had lecture for 2.5 hours, and then the last 30 minutes we would taste some of the wines. And so I thought, maybe that might be a fun course to do here. So I proposed a course that was virtually identical to the one that I took as an undergraduate, but it was a little bit more focused on chemistry than geography. And the curriculum committee turned it down. Bill Franz was chair of the curriculum committee at the time, and he said, I forgot the exact wording, but it was something along the lines, we didn't doubt the science of the course, but we thought that having a course in which students drank alcohol would not be appropriate for Randolph-Macon. While at the same time, during that time, people were drinking all kinds of alcohol in fraternity houses and sorority houses, never mind that, right? So
They
anyway,
weren't getting course credit for it.
yes. So they turned it down. I think that was in maybe 88, 1990, or I forgot exactly when. And then in 92, 93, I think April Marchetti came to Randolph-Macon as a student. And at one point she was asking me about whether I had thought about teaching some other classes. And I told her about this wine course that I wanted to do, and that was sort of turned down. And that was it. And then, after she went off and got her PhD, she came back to Randolph-Macon, and she said, this wine course that you once wanted to do, I think maybe you should propose it again. And I said, I don't really want to propose it again. I don't really like to be rejected again. and then she had the idea of why don't we add a lab component to it? So you have it as a laboratory science course for non-majors, and then maybe the curriculum committee might look more fondly on it. And so we did that, but it was her idea to add the lab component to it. And I forgot, around the same time we decided, okay, why don't we also do a travel component with it? So the course started as a standalone 3-credit lecture course that was turned down, and then we added the lab component and the travel component. And the first 3 years, 2003 through 2006, I took the course to California, to Sonoma and Napa Valley. And because it was winter time, there was really very little to see in the vineyards. There was nothing going on, and it was sort of boring. And then she and I talked about why don't we go to the Southern Hemisphere? And originally the plan was to go to Australia for 3 years, and then maybe South America, South Africa, and do some sort of rotation. And we proposed to explore the possibility of that. So we had a grant one summer, and we went to Australia for maybe 10 days or 2 weeks, and we went to visit certain sites, wineries. People took us around to see whether it would be feasible to do that kind of a course. And that's sort of how that came about. And I think the first maybe 2 or 3 years, April, maybe 2 years, she went along on the course, and then I believe she was pregnant and she couldn't fly the next time around, and then eventually she ended up not participating in the course anymore, and then I sort of did the rest of the course by myself. But she, in a way, she deserves the credit for convincing me to reapply to the curriculum committee. Otherwise that course might not have happened. So.
Did you have so the lab component, did the students make wine? Did you make some?
So the students, the 4 weeks is really too short to make wine. One time we did make wine as part of an FYEC course. I taught a course with Awisha Hilliot about wine and society. And so my part was about making wine in the class and talking about the chemistry of it. And her part was about teaching students about the role of wine in French society and in French literature. And so it was sort of fun working with somebody outside of the department on sort of a joint topic, coming at it from different perspectives. So that was also a fun course to develop. And then another one that I enjoyed teaching, and this was Howard Davis. He was running the honors program at the time, and he was trying to convince me to teach in the honors program, develop a course for the honors program. And I didn't really have time. I was busy in the department, and he kept bugging me, and eventually he succeeded, and I decided to develop a course with a physicist, Jim Borgwald. He was part of the physics department. He left a long time ago, actually, And we developed a course called Science and the Movies, and it was a course based on science fiction films, and we would screen maybe 4 or 5 science fiction films, and students had to identify the science in these films and tell us whether the science was real or not, whether stuff was feasible or not feasible. And they would jot these things down on the blackboard, and then depending on what they put up, we would teach those topics. And I was sort of the person responsible for the chemistry, biology part, and Jim was responsible for the physics, astronomy part of these movies. And so we taught that course once as an honors course, and it was great fun, fabulous students in the class. In fact, I think the original members of the band Carbon Leaf, they all took that course. And then several years later, we taught the course as a regular course, and then Jim left, and then I taught it a number of years with George Spagna. And then eventually we stopped teaching the course. So.
Yeah. Well, does Carbon Leaf have something to do with the science from a film? The name?
No,
I mean, the name of the band?
No. I just remember, I think 1 or 2 did. At the time, there was a drummer, a female student, I forgot her name now. She was a drummer. She wanted to go to medical school. And so she was really the only sciencey person that took the course. Elizabeth, I forgot her last name, Elizabeth something. Anyway, she was a bio major, great student and a really good drummer. But then when Carbon Leaf went off on their own to make it big, she went to medical school.
Right. Well, I'll just say for the record, Carbon Leaf is still around and playing, and I see it in the paper on the weekend highlights. Carbon Leaf. So the band that started here at Randolph-Macon is still going strong, and that was from the '80s, I believe. They were in the '80s. Yeah. Good. Well, those courses sound very interesting. I can see how students, honors and otherwise, would really be drawn to those. And I love hearing the collaboration, the FYE program, and then just collaboration on otherwise. So it wasn't just FYE where you taught jointly. I want to talk a little bit about your mentoring and research with your students. You've done that so magnificently here for a long time. And so mentoring students in the lab, you've alluded to it in some of the other things you've said so far, but let's talk about that, your lab.
Yes, when I was in graduate school, I had 2 undergraduate students, actually 3 of them, that were undergraduates, and I was the only graduate student at the time when I started. And those 3 students were amazing students. I was the graduate student. I was supposed to know everything, and they were undergraduates, but they knew a lot more than I did. Certainly in terms of doing real research in the lab, and now they were maybe not your average student. One of them was a chemical engineering major, and he went to MIT, got a PhD. Another one was a chemistry major, and he went to Caltech and got his PhD from a Nobel laureate. And the third person went to Colorado State and then ended up postdocing at the Max Planck Institute in Germany. So they were great students. They were not what I would say the average student. But what I learned was that undergraduates can do really great research, and that had a lot to do with me wanting to go to a PUI as opposed to an R1 institution or doing a postdoc or something along those lines. And so when I came to Randolph-Macon, I wanted to go somewhere where I could do research and where research was being supported. And Jerry and Liddell, both of them came from California. They came from Claremont McKenna, and Claremont McKenna is an institution that places a pretty high value on research and mentoring students and valuing research in addition to the teaching. And so they were both very interested in hiring people that wanted to sort of develop that part of Randolph-Macon. And so I think in a way I fit in with their vision. And yes, when coming here, my very first research student was somebody who did a senior project with me my first year at Randolph-Macon. And so I've had 92 research students since that day. And, I don't know whether I will hit 100 or not, but we'll see. But yeah, research is really, and mentoring student is really has been a very important part of my career here at Randolph-Macon.
Well, it's been so significant for Randolph-Macon, and I just want to state for the record, and you can correct me if I don't have this exactly right, but Randolph-Macon has been the #1 institution in the country for women undergraduates going on to receive PhDs in chemistry during the period 2007 to 17.
Yeah, that's correct, yes. Yeah, so a lot of, that is correct. So adjusted for size, right? I mean, a larger institution obviously produces more PhDs than we do. And so adjusted for size, yeah, we produced more PhDs in that 10-year period than any other institution in the country. That is correct. And yes, we have had really a fair amount of success in mentoring women.
Yeah.
And especially, initially when I started here, we were a department of really 3 males. And so in the meantime, we've hired almost all females. John Thorburn is the only person that is a male in our department. And in fact, April Marchetti and Susan Borowski and April Mattei, all 3 of them were my former research students, which is sort of fun having them now back as colleagues, right? And so I think, I'm not really sure why we have had, in a way, more female PhDs than male PhDs. A lot of times we tend to think that chemistry is more male-dominated. But it really was not the case in our department, given the faculty makeup. And even now, we have more females graduating in chemistry than we have males graduating in chemistry.
Well, I think that the mentoring that the students, male and female, get, I'm sure is a big part of that. And that the women feel comfortable in the lab and in classes, and that speaks well of Randolph-Macon in general, but the chemistry department in particular.
I think it really does. Even now, this summer, I have 3 research students. All 3 of them are female. John Thorburn has 5 research students, and 4 of them are female, and 1 of them is male. So we have a much larger. Even the SURF program, right? The female to male ratio is about 2 to 1. We have twice as many women participating in the SURF program over the years than we have males. So I don't know. I mean, as far as the SURF program is concerned, I think that the women write better proposals, and that's why they're funded probably at a higher rate. Again, I'm not really sure why that is, but it has turned out that way.
Well, you've mentioned the SURF program, so I do want to take a step back and talk about that. SURF stands for the Schapiro Undergraduate Research Fellowship Program, which was, I'm going to let you talk about the history of it, because I believe you have been a leader of it from the beginning, or near the beginning. So would you like to talk about the background of SURF?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned earlier that I spent a number of years going somewhere else during the summers. And I had a colleague who started 3 years after I did, Kelly Lambert. And we sort of were thinking the same way. We became really good friends. And she would spend her summers at the University of Richmond doing research. She couldn't do her research here. And during those years, I think I did most of my work at JMU during the summers. And it got to the point where, her husband was not very happy about her being away during the summers at another institution, and my wife was not very happy with me being at JMU during the summers. In fact, I barely made it back in time for the birth of my daughter when I was at JMU. Yes, that didn't go over very well. And so we we talked about trying to start a summer research program at JMU, and so the two of us got together. We wrote a proposal to establish a summer research program, and we gave it to the provost, Jerry Garris, and it sat on his desk for, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, like lots of things don't really move very far. And then we came across an advertisement for a workshop, and the workshop was a workshop that was held at Harvey Mudd College in California. And the title of the workshop was on how to institutionalize research and undergraduate institutions. How can you develop a really good research program across all disciplines, or maybe not across all disciplines, but a really good research program, but not just during the year, but also during the summer. And so we decided to apply to that workshop, and I don't remember exactly why Callie was not involved in that, but the way teams were selected, an administrator had to go, a senior faculty member had to participate, and a junior faculty member. Really, it meant was one person had to be not untenured, the other person had to be a tenured person, and then some administrator. And so I was the senior faculty member, although that was 1994, 94 something. And then the junior faculty member was Rhonda Eller. She was a computer scientist who worked in the computer department. She did robotics research, and she was a great scientist. And both of her sisters actually went to Randolph-Macon. Both of her sisters were chemistry majors, and so I ended up going to this workshop. Rhonda was the junior faculty member, and Jerry was the senior faculty member, or senior administrator. And I think the only reason Jerry actually went was because he could go back to California.
Right.
I always joked with him about that. I said, I think you went on this trip because of that. And so we went out there, and we spent 4 days, I think, there, learning about how one could go about institutionalizing research. And they had invited a lot of really good institutions like Harvey Mudd, like Franklin and Marshall and Williams, and sort of the Nifty 50, as well as Martin used to call these institutions. And we talked about how we could develop a summer research program. And then at the end of the workshop, we had to present a proposal, basically make up a post and present the proposal. And with all of the other institutions that did the proposal, they had the faculty member do the presentation. And Rhonda said, and I agreed with her, I said, why don't we get Jerry to propose this, stand up there and commit to this? Because if he does it, I think that carries a lot more weight than one of us doing it. And so Jerry said, I'm not sure. And then he said, okay, I'll do it. And so he did. He made this very passionate speech about how we were going to start a research program at Randolph-Macon, and he committed to funding 3 students the first summer. He said, I'll come up with money for 3 students. And also during that workshop, we decided to start what we now call Research Day.
Oh, okay. That came out.
And so that was also, as part of institutionalizing it, having a big celebration at the end of the year, have a research day where not just the surf stuff gets presented, but research in general. And so we did that, and we came back, and so that was 94-ish or so. And at the same time, Mike Carter, who worked in the advancement office, he gave me a call. This was my last summer at JMU, and he said, we have a trustee who has given $2,500 to do research with a student during the summer, but it has to be at Randolph-Macon. Bob Lincoln was his name, and so when Mike told me about it, he said basically you can't go to JMU anymore. You have to do the research with a student at Randolph-Macon.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, that is going to be challenging because we had some equipment, but really not a lot of equipment. And so in '95, then that was the summer when I was supposed to find somebody to do research. And so I advertised it in the department, and I had also a Chenery grant at the time, so I had money for 2 students. And one of the 2 students that applied was April Marchetti. Awesome. And so that was the year before the official SURF date. Mm-hmm. So she was in a way a precursor to the SURF program, along with another student. His name was Scott Heiberger, and the 2 of them worked in the lab here at Randolph-Macon the summer of '95, and then the summer of '96 was the first official year of SURF, and that was the summer when Jerry had promised to fund 3 students, and we advertised it, and we got, I don't know, 25 applicants, or maybe even 30 applicants, and we thought, oh, what do we do now? We don't have enough money, and Kelly Lambert at that time she was chairing the Committee on Faculty Development. And so they came up with a little bit of money. I think Jerry came up with money from the Provost Discretionary Fund. The president came up with some money from the President's Discretionary Fund. We asked SGA to give us some money. We asked the Honors Program to give us some money. So between all of that, we were able to cobble together, I think, 12 or 13 fellowships for students. And that first summer, '96, and then 2 years later, Ben Schapiro came in and he made this rather substantial gift to underwrite the program, and that really changed things for us, certainly from a money point of view.
So you're coming up on 30 years of official SURF, but really this summer would be almost 30 years of the first one, when April Marchetti was sort of the
yes.
beta testing
yes.
of it.
Yeah,
and I would say the program, if that was the beta test and April Marchetti was one of the students, I'd say it was pretty successful now that she's a full-time faculty member.
Yeah. In fact, I mean, she was also then she did SURF, actually that first real SURF, the '96, she was in that cohort of 12 or 13 students.
So just for the record, we're in the early weeks of 2024 SURF, and so students started 2 weeks ago. We had a kickoff, and how many students do you have this summer?
We have in the program we have 18 students that are supported through SURF, and we have another 10 students that are supported through various grants, NSF grants, or Klein Maloney Fellowship for Women in the Sciences. Drew Maloney was a political science major here, and Sabra Klein was a research student for Kelly Lambert. And after they graduated, Sabra Klein is now a faculty member at Johns Hopkins, and I forgot what Drew is doing, but the 2 of them donated money to the college to support women in the sciences to do research. Sabra had a really good experience working with Kelly, and they established this fund to support women in the sciences that want to go on to graduate school. And so one of the students this summer is supported. She has that particular fellowship. Another student, John Thorburn, has an NSF grant, and Elias in the biology department, he has an NSF grant. And then I'm trying to think who else. I think Kim Garrick is supporting a student off her Chenery grant. So there are several other students that are supported through non-SURF funds.
Not SURF money, but I'm sure it makes those grant applications a lot more appealing when you have a strong program to say the students will be collaborating.
Exactly. And also by by being able to support some students, not through SURF funds, we are able to, increase the SURF stipend a little bit this year, not just for students, but also for the faculty members. And we hope that we are able to continue this, are able to increase it even more. One of the challenges that we have is the fact that these NSF summer programs, like the very one that I participated so many years ago, students get paid $6,000.
Back then.
Wow. and now. And so in fact, we have one of our students doing one of these programs at Virginia Tech, and so they get paid quite a bit more than what we are offering students here. And that poses a challenge. It's a great experience for the students, but I think we all would like the students to be here than be somewhere
right, then
else,
sending them right.
Yeah.
So all comes down to, a lot of things come down to the funding, but it's been very, very successful, and great research, and the applications. I'm sure you still have many more applicants than you can fund.
Yes, the applications are it's challenging. We send the proposals out to faculty reviewers, and we try to fund certainly all the ones that are recommended for funding by the faculty reviewers, and we fund them until we run out of money, basically. And so that's essentially how that goes.
And it is across all disciplines.
It is. Yes, and I think I should have really said that earlier. I think that is one thing that is in a way unique about our summer research program. Historically, these summer research programs were based in a particular discipline, typically either in the sciences a lot of times, chemistry or biology or physics, and all of these NSF RU programs initially, they were in a particular discipline. The one that I participated in at JMU was based in chemistry. And so we really wanted to do something that was across all disciplines, not just in the sciences. And we have, most years we have a lot more science participants, in part because the students that are not funded through SURF, they tend to be science students, because NSF doesn't give really money to the humanities. And so faculty members that apply for these grants, the students that are not funded through SURF tend to be all science majors. But the funding rate is essentially the same for the folks in the humanities, in the sciences, and in the social sciences. It's not that one discipline typically has a higher funding rate than another one. The reality is we have fewer people applying from the humanities than we have from the sciences. That's in part discipline specific, but all the students that are funded outside of SURF, all of them are science students.
Right. Well, it's a great program. It's one of the hallmarks of Randolph-Macon education, or I know the admissions office loves to tout that. And I think going back to the reason you selected Randolph-Macon, that you could make a difference as a faculty member here, perhaps more than a larger institution like Colgate, or you, or Stuart Monroe told you that. But I think this type of relationship of student-faculty research bears that out.
I think when the day comes for me to retire, I think the most difficult part for me will be walking away from the research students. Especially the summers. You really get to know them very well, maybe too well, and they get to know you very well. and I think that part will be difficult to leave behind. I think the other part is that with this doing research with the students, it's largely for them, right? They can build their resume. We take them to conferences, right? They present their work. The chemistry department typically takes them in the spring to the National American Chemical Society conference. and we have done that since '92, every single year. We take X number of students, and so we took, I think, 8 or 9 this past summer to New Orleans, this past spring to New Orleans. And it's a great experience for the students to be exposed to the scientists that come talk to them about their research. They either give talks, they do poster presentations, and so and then occasionally we take them to international conferences, which psychology department, I think right now they are in Panama with 1 or 2 students, and we're taking a couple of them to Ireland a little bit later on. We've taken some to Florence. We have taken some to Australia. So I think all of these are really good experiences for the students.
Amazing experiences for the students to travel and participate in professional conferences in their undergraduate years. That's wonderful. Well, I do want to just take a moment and state for the record, highlight some of the teaching awards that you have won. So just bear with me. You have won the Thomas Branch Award for Excellence in Teaching multiple times. 92, 97, 99, 2001, 2006, and 2022. The Samuel Nelson Gray Distinguished Professor Award in 2010. Also, the Art Conway Enthusiasm for Teaching and Learning Award in 2010. And in 2021, you were awarded Higgins Academic Center Outstanding Tutor Advocate. And that is, by working with tutors myself, I know how important the tutors are for the students, and that advocating for them as a faculty member is so important. In addition, many, many grants, outside funded grants and awards that I won't read right now. I've had multiple things. We had touched a little bit on the old science building, but we built a new science building that was dedicated in 2017, the Macon F. Brock Hall. You and your wife, Linda, gave a substantial gift as a challenge for the fundraising for that. And that challenge was able to raise almost $3 million to that building. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk about how important the building was, and to give you a chance to thank you for your leadership on that.
The old science building was built in 1969, Copley Science Center, and there are a lot of things that are, shall we say, not so good about it anymore. And when plans were made to build the new science center, or in addition to it, they let all of the science people in the various departments participate a little bit in the design of the building, and how we wanted to do the labs and offices and so on. Quite a few people were involved with that, and we came up with something, I think, that we realized quickly that we could never, I think the building was initially designed to be like a $33 million building or something like that. And then I think the advancement office realized quickly that we couldn't raise that kind of a money. And so it was sort of scaled back to, I forgot what the end cost was, maybe 17 million or something. I don't remember. And so, and we felt that all of us in the science, we were talking about the fact that, so we had this design for a building, and it didn't seem like to move. Nobody really seemed to be enthusiastic about it. And while there was money being raised for all kinds of things at the college, the science building was not really at the forefront. And so, I don't remember exactly how we came about doing that challenge. I think Diane Lauder talked to us about it. Honestly, we were reluctant to do it, and they felt that we should do it. and so we did, and I think the board of trustees was, I don't know, they matched it very quickly. I think they were maybe, I don't know, I wouldn't say embarrassed, but I think they
were challenged.
Yes, yes. And so that's really how that came about. But neither one of us really wanted our names associated with it, just because that's not something that we liked. You know what I mean? In terms of going out and talking about whatever money we may have given or not. But it was done really to get other people to contribute, and hopefully if we step up a little bit, they say, okay, you know, if they think this is a worthwhile undertaking, maybe I can contribute to it as well. So
yeah, I think those challenge initiatives are very effective for that reason. Other people say, oh wow, well, if they're doing that, then I can do this, or you know. So but anyway, thank you, and it's a lovely building, and I hope it's serving its purposes well. Well, the COVID pandemic hit in March of 2020, so I wanted to give you a chance, if you'd like, to talk about how that affected you and your teaching and your students.
Oh, yes. It was a shock, to say the least. We all had to, go to online teaching, basically. I'm not very good at that. And I think it was a big challenge for us to develop our lectures. I think what was even harder was trying to do online labs. You can't really do online labs. Research came to a screeching halt, essentially. Although I should say, even though we did not officially have SURF in 2020, summer of 2020, I did have 3 research students in 2020. We all were wearing masks, and we continued to do the research. And that was really, really good to keep our mentally, in shape, so to speak, because the COVID pandemic really was a problem. And so we all had to, develop our courses, change our courses. I think the hardest part in the sciences in general was in the fall semester, we went to these 7-week terms. We did 2 7-week terms as opposed to, and doing 2 7-week terms, it meant there was the lecture part, but doing the labs in those 2 7-week terms was really difficult, really challenging. I think was that 2020 or 2021?
That would have been the fall of 2020.
That was fall, yeah. So that was really difficult, and so I certainly was happy when we didn't have to do that anymore. Yeah. And I was supposed to go in the fall, in January of 2022. I was supposed to go back to Australia and New Zealand, and that was canceled because Australia was completely closed, and so was New Zealand. They didn't let anybody in. And so this course that I was supposed to teach didn't happen. I tried to change it to doing California and Oregon, and then that didn't work out. And then I thought I would do it in Virginia, and so I spent a lot of time trying to develop different versions of that course. And in the end, none of it worked out, because we ended up going back online during that January term, at least for maybe the first 2 weeks or something like that. And so that travel course would not have worked. So I think we were all happy when we could go back to to classes. But it was a big challenge, especially the laboratory component on it. Some of us sent kits out to students. They would do lab work at home. We tried to do online labs, which are not very effective. And you just did the best that you could.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest part about COVID is I think the students that were in high school during those days and then came to Randolph-Macon, they really missed out. And it's pretty clear that they missed out because they are not prepared the way they should have been prepared. I think that more so than anything else has been a challenge. So.
Yeah. Well, any other challenging experiences that you would want to that you think about when you think about here? I know the building and equipment and funding is always a perennial challenge.
Well,
but.
yeah, I think the funding is always a challenge. I know a lot of, everybody wants higher salaries, right? For sure. I think there's no question about that. I mean, I go back to Randolph-Macon and Colgate. I was offered $18,500 to start at Randolph-Macon. Colgate offered me $25,000. That is a huge difference, right? And I think that has not changed, in my opinion, over the years, right? The numbers are different, but the percentages are they are not different. So, and I think it is important to retain good faculty, by compensating them the proper way. Otherwise, if they get better opportunities to go somewhere else, they may go somewhere else. And I'm sure we have lost some people because of it. We may lose more people in the future because of it. So that is, I think that is a big challenge in my opinion. I think in the sciences, some people may elect to go to industry. I mean, industrial salaries are always higher than academic salaries. And I think in the humanities, it is maybe even more of a problem. So I think that is probably the biggest challenge. And then the second part is I keep reading about student drop-off over the next 5 or 10 years, fewer students graduating from high school, the competition getting stronger to attract students. So I think that will be a challenge for smaller institutions. And I think the third challenge in a way is, we've added some programs like the nursing program, the PA program. I think some people, and me included to some extent, worried about preserving what a liberal arts institution is. My undergraduate school, Miami of Ohio, was very much a liberal arts institution. They were, of course, much larger, and they did have a business school and a law school, and they didn't have a law school. But I think Randolph-Macon has changed quite a bit. When I started, we had 950 students. We now have 1,500 students. And part of what we have done is, in order to meet the financial challenges, we've increased the student body. We've added a lot more majors over the years, and that certainly has worked. But I think there is a finite number of majors that we can add. There's a finite number of programs that we can have, and in terms of the cost of the institution, eventually we'll reach a plateau in that as well, where this place doesn't become affordable anymore for parents, and I think that may be eventually the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Well, what have been some of the most satisfying experiences you've had at Randolph-Macon?
So again, I'm really met some amazing people at Randolph-Macon that sort of had an impact on me, and I would single Jerry Garris out on that one. He was an amazing provost and dean. He was always supportive. He many years after he left, I went to a conference in California, and he invited me and my students to dinner, and he didn't have any really reason to do that, and so we went there for dinner, and he said, "I have a surprise for you. We have another dinner guest," and in came Liddell Payne, and so we spent an evening there with both of them, and he and Penny took us to the beach the next day, and we spent an afternoon at the beach, and he always liked cars, and so he talked to me about cars all the time, and so he was somebody that really had a big influence on me in terms of how to sort of conduct yourself, and in terms of how to be a leader in a way, and yeah, I really enjoyed him. I mentioned sort of my friendship with Ray Berry. We see each other every so often here and there, and for a long time, every time I would go back to Luxembourg, he would say, "Bring me back a Riesling, wine from Luxembourg," because he enjoyed that. And so those were two of the people that had influenced me. Wallace Martin, I talk to him pretty much every time I see him. I spend a lot of time in the beginning working with him together on the bio program, the chemistry program, and how to get people together and so on. So sort of these sort of friendships have been really, really nice. I think it's nice when former students want to come back as faculty members. It means that we're doing something right here, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't want to come back. So I think that has been very satisfying things. But in the end, for me, it has been always about the students. I simply enjoy working with the students. I sort of have a soft spot in my heart for foreign students, maybe because I was a foreign student myself, and I sort of know what it means to be a stranger in a strange land. And so I've had some amazing foreign students that have worked in my lab for the most part. In the early days, Paul Nyantaki, who got an honorary degree from Randolph-Macon, former student from Ghana, who is a physician, and then Elliot Asari, another student from Ghana, who is now in Utah, University of Utah. He's a pediatric oncologist. So those two, I remember Stephanie and Paolo Garcia. Paolo was a physics major. Stephanie was an econ chemistry major, and so I stay in pretty regular contact with these people. And then most recently, Ana Leal from Brazil, who is now a second-year student, PhD student at Northwestern. So some of the foreign students, they have become really good friends over the years. Trang Tran was another econ chemistry double major. She's from Vietnam. She worked in my lab, did amazing work, and she ended up getting a PhD in economics, and she works at a university in Singapore now. And so she decided to go the academic route, not in chemistry, but in a different discipline. So I've had some really great foreign students come to my lab, and I enjoy working with them and talking to them. Not necessarily so much about the chemistry, but what it takes and entails to be a foreigner in another country. Anyway, so those, I think those things I remember the people a lot more than a paper I wrote or a grant I got or an award that I got. That's not what it is about. It's about the people, and for me more so than I certainly enjoy my faculty colleagues, and I have great colleagues in the department, outside of the department, but the work with the student is what I enjoy the most.
Well, that really comes through in our interview today. Any other memories or stories or anything you'd like to share?
Oh, memories or stories, I'm trying to think. Can't really think of anything. A story, one of the hardest things that I had to do as a department chair. How about that?
Okay.
So Schuyler Miller was this amazing chemistry professor. He retired in, I don't know when exactly he retired, but he as a chemistry faculty member, and then he came back as an adjunct to teach geology. Oh. And he had a lab. I think eventually he retired at maybe age 82 or 83. And he had a lab, and every old alum talks to me, asks me, did you know Schuyler Miller? And I said, yeah, I knew Schuyler Miller. And he's some sort of a legend at Randolph-Macon. And so he had a lab in Copley, and when we sort of got a little bit bigger and we hired more people, we needed his lab space. And he was not doing research. He was using a lab to store geology artifacts, rocks, and on. A collection that Mike Fenster now has. And so I had just become department chair. I think it must have been 92, 93 or so. And so I was told to get him out of the lab. And I felt rather uncomfortable. So I went to Jerry and I said, look, you are the provost. You need to tell him to get out of the lab. And Jerry said, no, I don't really want to do this. And then Tom Porter was there. I think at that time, Tom was the Dean of Institutional Planning, so the person actually in charge of space, basically. And Tom said, no, I do not want to tell him to leave. Nobody wanted to tell him to leave. And so here I'm this young whatever person, and I had to tell Schuyler, oh, can you please vacate your lab? That was uncomfortable. So funny story, but uncomfortable nevertheless.
Take your rock collection elsewhere.
Yes.
And now Mike Fenster has it. You said, and Mike has just retired.
He has.
So is the rock collection still in?
No, it's on the second floor in Brock Hall. It's all displayed and everything.
Okay, so in its own dedicated space now.
It does. has its own space. Yes, but that was sort of a fun and not so fun story. It was funny that the senior administrators, none of them wanted to tell him to leave, and so anyway.
Well, Serge Schreiner, I want to thank you so much for coming to Making Memories today. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, and best wishes with your students and their research and your trip to Ireland coming up, and surf and all the things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.